It's time for today's face-off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams, ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-off on Fox Soul starts right now.
I taste the cat, look but the dog in me. Why must I feel like that? Why must I taste the cat, look but the dog in me. Why must I feel like that? Why must I taste the cat, look but the dog in me. Do the dog catch it, dog catch it, do the dog catch it.
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
So, Quanell, this is a viral video, TikTok, a reel, so to speak, of an African-American woman who is a job placement official who is claiming that she spoke to dozens of her white, she specifically said white, clientele, and then listed all of their excuses for not wanting to do manual labor as if white people somehow think it is beneath them, right? And it culminated with, you know, some alleged, and I think all of them contrived, made up, just to push racism, because really the only racism that's okay on social media now that won't get you in trouble is racism directed at white folk. But claiming that, oh, why don't the people that are doing it now? And it's an effort by progressives to stymie conversations about how we need to fix the immigration system, the employment of illegals, and by fixing it, they want to maintain, instead of fixing it, they want to maintain the status quo, right? Which is allowing illegals to flood in this country, to take manual labor jobs that are outside of our tax system. And I think it's a horrible conversation. I do not know why this woman needed to use racism to do it, but that is also very commonplace nowadays on social media. If you just look at the Fox Face-Off Instagram page, which y'all should all follow, almost every post has people casually using racial pejoratives for white people, that if the flip side, if people were casually and offensively using racial pejoratives for any other race, they would get banned and thrown off Instagram.
That's not true.
Oh, it's absolutely true.
You have never watched. You have never watched Sean Hannity.
Okay.
You never watched Tucker Carlson.
But I don't like either of those guys.
You never watched Megyn Kelly and all of them.
I don't think they're dropping racial pejoratives. For
all the time
people.
They do.
You are lying through
all
your
the
teeth,
time they do.
As usual.
You never listen to our president sometimes?
The real question, he does not say racial pejoratives.
All the time he does.
No, absolutely does not. You were lying again, because that is what you do.
When he speaks about shithole countries and all of that.
Let's get back to the topic, okay? The topic at hand is, why is it okay to try to shut down a fixing of our system? Because I don't agree with what the Trump administration is doing holistically, although I absolutely applaud throwing violent criminal non-citizens out of this country. I hope they throw them all out. By all, I mean all the violent criminal non-citizens, whether they entered legally or illegally, they all got to go. But I do think it is time to fix how we employ migrants and low-level employees in this country.
That's a play on words.
We got to fix it.
That's a play on words.
What's the play on words?
Because when
educate me,
because when we say that we all or many of Americans support, according to the polls, having the violent or criminals, period, the criminals or illegal immigrants deported from this country. Well, Charles, if we're going to deport all illegal immigrants that committed a crime, right?
I said violent crime.
Violent crime.
It's an important variable.
So it's not every crime.
No, I didn't say. Why don't you pay attention to me?
But wait a minute.
Because you already know your lie.
Let me finish. Many Americans are saying if they've committed a criminal act as a legal immigrant in America, deport them, okay? What they're not telling the people is, yes, and that's exactly what they're going to do. Because if you came in illegally, you already committed a criminal act. Therefore, you're considered a criminal. And so they're going to remove you. If you came in and you got a date to return for a hearing and you didn't attend that hearing and you failed to show up with that failure to appear, you are a criminal. So Charles, what they're saying is they're just going after the criminals, and they use the word the violent ones, but everybody's getting caught and wrapped up in that net. Now, this lady was interesting in this TikTok video because your friends, your white friends that you call, or customers, or clients that you call,
Clearly they're not friends. She's being racist.
They don't want to pick fruit at these farms. Charles, black folk don't either. Black folk don't want to go out there picking that damn fruit either, and nor do white people. Let's just be honest. But why they don't want to do it? Because they're not willing to do it for that slave wage that you've been exploiting the immigrant workforce for, and that's why they don't want to do it. Now, if you're talking about paying a real, living, respectable wage, then whites and blacks are willing to do that. But I'll be damned we go out there and do it for that slave exploitation labor and that payment that you've been paying them. And what they've been doing to some of them is, well, we paying you $1.50 an hour, but since we're giving you a tent or a trailer to live in, we take your housing out of that. So it's nothing more than modern day slavery. So I don't blame white people or black people for not willing to work under those same conditions.
Well, initially, if they were citizens, they would have to be paid a minimum wage. And I'll agree, I think the whole system is built on exploitation. And that's why I think we need to fix the system, right? I think we need to allow migration. I think immigration it's important to America. And in fact, our founding fathers, when they built this country, it was to be a beacon for immigrants, right? Of course,
but that's not the way to fix it.
Hold on. The way to fix it is, yes, it is to make people get permits, to get resident cards, to pay taxes. But of course, that'll probably drive up grocery prices, construction prices, restaurant prices.
They don't want to fix the immigration problem.
That's necessary to prevent people from being in slave labor conditions. Because I will tell you, the conditions of migrant farm workers are horrifying.
Yes, but there's a better way to fix the immigration problem.
Let's hear
This is how you fix it, Charles.
Tell me, Quanell.
So you don't
get rid of all the white people.
So you don't punish the little migrant worker.
Okay.
You don't punish a little man or woman who came over seeking a better life.
You punish the employer.
You punish the employer.
Right.
And let's say you make every employer make the law read that if you employ an illegal immigrant without the proper documentation from the United States government, you can be charged with a felony. How much you want to bet they would stop hiring them, and so therefore the demand for that workforce would no longer be coming over because they're not being hired like they used to. They probably would remain where they are, and then go a bit further. And when we find out that you've been paying them under the nation's minimum wage, whatever the reason you try to justify it for, that's another felony. How much you want to bet we would stop the immigration problem?
Well, and maybe
because the reason why it is what it is, because they want that migrant workforce.
No, the reason why it is what it is in the last 5 years, during the last 4 years of the Biden administration, is because Biden opened basically the spigot and helped create programs that were federally funded to private charities to both convince people to come to this country and to provide entitlement programs, sometimes directly from the government and sometimes through charities funded by the government, so the government can say, hey, we're not doing it, charities are doing it.
But why did Trump not sign an executive order punishing the employers?
Well, first of all,
because those are his friends.
No, it's already
those are his campaign contributors. Those are some of the, they got cousins and uncles that look like them who are the employers. Why there's only punishment for the workforce, the poor immigrant migrant, but not the employer, because they don't want to punish the people that financially support the politicians.
I promise you that Homan and the other officials in the Trump administration are going to hold employers to account. It is already a crime. I promise you we'll see
they're not enforcing that law.
Biden didn't enforce any laws on immigration. And then, you know, the whole, I've loved the media shell game for the last couple of weeks, which was, well, Biden deported as many as Trump. Well, if you let 20 times more in, right, you've got to do the per capita math, but the media, especially the legacy and mainstream media, they talk to Americans out of both sides of their mouths to push a certain narrative. I applaud the Trump administration for getting serious about expelling violent felons who came to this country.
But you and I both know they're doing more than that.
Well, we haven't seen them do more than that.
Oh, that's not true.
No, that is absolutely true. And I also think we need to, but even more importantly, we need to reform our system of immigration and not, you know, right now we have a system that basically just allows the Elon Musk, the oligarchs of the world, to import cheap, highly skilled
And
labor
that's what it's about.
to cut of the American
It's
middle
the
class
labor
off of the
workforce.
knees.
Punish
But-
the employer, and you really big time the immigration
No,
problem.
But right now, like Tesla does it legally, right? They import people from South Asia, pay them pennies on the dollar from American computer engineers, American code writers, and they're basically crushing the American middle
And
class.
that should be illegal.
And, well, they should just
But that's
limit
Trump's
those number of
homeboy.
visas.
But that's Trump's homeboy. So he won't do that.
Well, actually, the Trump administration is talking about greatly restricting it, but we also need a more accessible plan for the poor, for the migrant. I actually employed a woman for years, for decades. Shout out to Delphina, my old secretary, who grew up. She started working in the fields in America, 6 years old. She was born in the United States. Mother was a migrant farm worker working in the fields. As soon as she was old enough to pick, she was out there in the fields with her mom. It's a horrible travesty as to how these people are just exploited in America, and the only way you fix it is by shining a light on it and changing the process
And
by
they
which
even
people can
and
come
they even
to this
had
country and work.
quotas. They had quotas in place for the kids.
Oh, of course.
That the kids had to pick so much cotton, pick so
course.
much fruit, pick so many vegetables. They had quotas for the kids.
Well, cotton is largely harvested now.
It's shameful, man. But when I
there
say
is
cotton,
right.
I mean during the time of slavery was the same thing.
Right,
They had quota systems for the children.
Right, but so when we talk about it, we've got to get our mind right. We shouldn't use an excuse.
But
to
we're
just be
not
racist
punishing the
against-
employers, though.
We need to not use an excuse.
And the
to
overwhelming
hate
majority
on
of those
white
employers
people.
are white people.
Oh, no, look,
The
I know,
overwhelming
I
majority
know.
of these corporate giants that are benefiting from that low migrant labor
Well, the
are
majority
white-owned
of people-
companies.
The majority of people in this country are white people, right?
Well, they
None of
white-owned
that
companies.
doesn't work.
You ain't punishing
I
them.
am glad you and this woman both think racism is the only way to find a solution, but it is not. Let's get real solutions.
And folks still out here worried about genders making transitions. Some of you men will be better off becoming a woman so at least we could begin to understand the in you. You got parents out here kicking out their kids for their sexuality but protecting the school shooter. You got folks outside of abortion clinics holding up signs telling folks they going to hell, but I have yet to see a protest on the front lawn at the home of a rapist. You rather teach your daughter what she can and cannot wear, but not teach your son how to respect a female. You once judged your daughter's boyfriend for committing theft just so he could feed his brothers and sisters. Meanwhile, your company has embezzled millions for years for greed. You got people out here judging folks to go to public school, but it turns out private schools like to keep things a little too private. And you want to use the Bible to unjustify their sins, and you want to skip over the ones that taunt yours. And you have folks that literally stood on the front lines for this country and can't even come home and get some peace. And you say they the ones with the mental health issues, but our government sent missiles over to a whole nother country because they ain't like their attitude. But that's neither here nor there. And you trying to tell me that if I have a baby daddy, I gotta be the one to force him to pay child support, and he don't have to worry about it. But a room full of men can make decisions on what a woman can and cannot do with her body. Tell me something, at what point will we be for real? Or at least realize that we worried about the wrong damn business? I'm starting to think y'all don't want peace.
In this round, here's Quanell X.
I believe that we just watched what they call spoken word poetry, and I understand that sister is probably from Houston, the Houston area. If she is, I want to say that I've never met that sister, but I hope and pray that one day I will. She spoke a lot of truth, and she pointed out a lot of hypocrisy that takes place in America. How we'll strain at a gnat but swallow a camel at the same time. How we like to pick and choose what we focus on, but yet we like to skip over the things that points the finger at us. Really what she was saying is, let's get away from the hypocrisy. And she spoke about a room full of men making decisions over a woman's body to choose how she handles what she does with her body. Well, I agree and disagree with that, because men should not have to make a decision of what a woman does with her body, but a woman also has the right to choose to make sure that she governs her body with tremendous value and respect. And remember that you're not the men of this world don't control you as a woman, but you're not this woman naturally. You're naturally the woman of God. So she had a lot of points that she made. She pointed out a lot of hypocrisy, and I appreciate that, sister, because we need more women like her and men that's willing to make us take a long, hard look in the mirror at our own hypocrisy and clean it up.
You know, I will tell you, and it's her, I think her Instagram handle is talk_rarity. I believe her name is Chelsea Rarity Williams. She is from here in Houston. I believe that post was on WAN, W-A-N, poetry. I think, you know, slam poetry, spoken word, whatever. I think she had a good delivery. She sounded like a Southern preacher giving a sermon. But I do think a lot of it was reductive. She was drawing it. There was a comparison. You know, she was all over the place, hitting a bunch of liberal talking points. But she talked about, you know, private schools being too private. We do have some examples of private schools hiding some criminality, especially sexual exploitation of kids.
So she spoke facts.
Hold on. But it's very rare, and it occurs with this equal frequency in public
It's very
schools.
rare that it's reported and discovered, but it happens quite a bit.
Okay, it happens at the same frequency in private schools than it does in public, and I don't think we should pretend just for the snaps or the cheers of a room that kids that go to public schools in this country, except for the very, very most affluent ones, get the same level of quality education and the same level of opportunity that kids that go to the majority of the private schools in this nation. I think it's dishonest doublespeak, right? I think, you know, at the moment, you know, I obviously did not have a lot of money when I had my children young, but then when I got to the point where I could afford it, I put my kids in private schools. I sent them to private universities, and I paid for all of it because that's where they had the most opportunity, right? So let's not pretend that kids don't do better when money is spent to give them a better education.
Now, I'm going to be honest with you, Charles.
Yes.
My children, also my adult children now, also went to some of the finest private schools.
Okay.
But I'm going to be honest with you, brother. Private school is not all that it's pumped up to be.
Well, no, there's a lot of problems at both.
And private school is not giving the academic greatness that it's allegedly giving to many of these students. Private schools will tolerate behavior and conduct that normal schools would not in the public sector tolerate and allow a kid to remain in the classroom. But I'm telling you, Charles, to be honest with you, the best academic giants that I've seen in the last 20 years have been immigrant students who never attended a private school because their families could not financially afford to. But these Arab children, Asian children, and immigrant Indian children are running circles around America's children academically, and they're not attending any of these private schools, so their families cannot afford to.
I think you are absolutely wrong. I think that obviously there are very high-performing children from all over the world, and an outsized number from Asia, both South Asia, West, all over that very large continent. I think that, but I don't think that it is accurate to say that the highest performers on average are going to public schools versus private schools. The math just doesn't work, especially when you get to these elite academic institutions. But you glossed over a lot of stuff.
But look at the scholarships.
What were your thoughts?
The scholarships are going more toward academic giants of public schools than private schools.
A lot of times, private scholarship money is tied to need, especially at the elite level, where you don't see athletic scholarships and other things at the Ivy League. But you glossed over a lot of stuff. What were your thoughts on our comments about the trans Americans? And I mean, it seems like you picked and choose.
No, exactly. I don't recall that part of what she said. I remember she touched on it. But exactly what is she about parents putting their children out to home or something like that?
Okay, yeah, she was talking about the intolerance that we see in parents and the intolerance we see in America, both for the LGBT, the entire LGBT community. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think
I would say this. I'm gonna be very honest with you. Yeah. If you are a child and you know that your parents object to a certain lifestyle because that is their religious beliefs and foundation of that home, then I would say to that child, respect your parents' right as the guardians and owners of that home, the stewards of that home, to respect their views on a certain lifestyle. If you want to live that lifestyle, well, then it's time for you to exit that home and live in your own residence, in your own home, where nobody can tell you how to live but you. What we're doing is we're having some children who are quote unquote coming out, and they know their parents are against it, but trying to force them to adopt and accept the lifestyle. I believe there's a time and a place for everything. You can't tell somebody else who owns that home how to live in that house. They set the rules of that house. That's what I believe. So if you want to live that way, there's going to come a time to where you're ready to step out and be on your own, then that's how you live. The same way my grandmother told my brother, you can't drink alcohol in my house. You want to drink alcohol, go get your own house. The same thing, she had rules.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree more. And I think it's a false equivalence to equate being a homosexual with consuming alcohol underage, right? I think it's
about
offensive.
following the rules of the parents in that home.
But here's the thing, that if someone comes out about their sexuality and they're rejected by their parents, right? I think the only monster in the sea, the only bad actor, the only horrible person in that situation is the parent that rejects the kid.
Now that's where you're wrong.
And I think that's
where you're wrong.
I know
so
I'm not
if
wrong,
the parent,
so I'm right.
So if the parent rejects the lifestyle, that means they rejects the child?
Yeah, if you
No,
if
you can reject the lifestyle, you can reject a life practice, but that doesn't mean that you reject your child.
Okay, there are tons of parents that put their children out of their house. I know one now that lose access to the love and the parental relationship because they come out and they tell their parents they're gay. And I think it's absolutely evil, right? And I think any sort of support for that
You don't put your child on the streets.
People do it all the time.
But I will say this once again.
Okay, tell me your
nonsense. If your parents have rules in their home, well, as long as you're living there, respect their rules.
Okay, so
you can't change the rules because you change your lifestyle.
Okay, but if the rule is you can't be gay and they're gay, how do they not?
So then this is what you do. You can say, Mom and Dad, this is my orientation, but I'm not going to practice it in your home because I know how you feel about it. Okay. And so when I leave your home, I'll live my life. But under your roof, I will follow your rules.
Okay, I get following the rules, but that's not what we're seeing happen. What we're seeing happen is children are being told they can't be gay or they're being thrown out of the house, right? And don't you think that's horrible?
I think it's bad to just throw your child on the streets. Okay. You don't do it like that.
But why
that's wrong.
Why not accept
But once again,
your child's
children
orientation?
also got to understand. If mom and dad got rules, you got to respect those rules. You can't make the rules as you go as a child.
I'd just like to say, Rarity, thanks for the great poem to give us something to really have a substantive discussion.
Oh, yeah, she was dynamic, sister. Keep doing what you're doing.
That's it for the Face Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time.